Hello everyone and welcome back to the Guitar Learning Show. My name is Kevin and today I'm going to show you how to unlock the top 3 strings of your guitar and start soloing in a way that actually sounds intentional, not random. And we're going to do that using triads on strings 1, 2, and 3. Okay? Let me give you an example of what I mean. All right, before we jump in, if you could hit that like and subscribe button, it really helps us out a lot. Thank you. So that was just playing some E minor pentatonic over a chord progression. I wasn't really targeting anything. I wasn't targeting any root notes or any chord tones. Next, I'll give you an example of running that same chord progression, but playing with intention and playing chord tones instead. Okay? Let's hear what that sounds like. All right, so the difference there is the first time I was just playing notes of the pentatonic scale, and then this second time I was playing the actual chord tones that go along with it, and I was just playing the chords in on the top 3 strings, the high E string, the B string, and the G string. And so I was playing E minor to a C, to a G, to a D. So I'd like to just go over why that actually works. What is a triad? Triad is the root, it's the third, and it is the fifth of a chord. That's all it is. So the root tells you the actual chord name. So if the root is a G, it's a G chord, okay? The third tells you whether it's major or minor. And then the fifth, it stabilizes the chord, all right? And here's the important part. If you can see the chord, then you can see your solo notes. And you can solo just using those 3 notes of the chord. There's all kinds of things you can do with those notes to change things up and make them sound musical. So why am I choosing strings 1, 2, and 3? Well, most beginner players learn how to play chords in the open position. So they learn basically a lot of low chords. So you get the G, the open G, open C, an open E chord, maybe the E minor, maybe the A minor, and the D, which is a little bit higher because it's down here on 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's generally what most people who are starting out on guitar, that's what they learn. That's what I learned when I started. And so those lower notes of the chord they don't really give a guitarist a way to cut through the mix when you're playing in a band scenario, okay? So the top 3 strings, they're going to cut through the mix, they're easy to bend, and they're perfect for melody, and they're simple because they're just 3 notes. So you really don't need 6 strings to sound musical. You only need 3. So let's work in C major. And we're going to start with the root form of the triad, okay? And that is going to be here with your index finger on the 1st string, 3rd fret, and your ring finger on the 5th fret of the 3rd string, and your pinky, you're going to place that on the 5th fret of the 2nd string, okay? And that's your C chord. The note under your ring finger is your C. Of course, that's the 1. And then the next note down is the E. And that's the 3. And that next note down under your index finger, that's the 5. Okay, so that's C, E, and G. And what we can do with that is we can play that anywhere up the neck as a different chord, okay? So it's C here because the root note is a C, but if we go up 2 frets, that's now a D. If we go up 2 more frets, it's an E, 1 more fret, F, 2 frets, G. And I think you get the picture. So these are like mini bar chords because you can move them all over the neck, all right? So let's head back here to the C. So that's a C major because the third is a major third, but we can make that a minor third. So if we flat that third, instead of using our pinky, we're going to put our middle finger here on the 4th fret of the 2nd string. And we now have a flatted third. We have an E flat instead of an E. And that is our C minor. And just to be complete, we don't generally play diminished chords, but I'm going to show you how to do it just for fun. So I put my pinky where my ring finger was, up here on the 5th fret of the 3rd string. I'm going to put my ring finger where the middle finger was, and I'm going to stretch my index all the way to the 2nd fret, okay? Because you've got to lower the 5th, and the 5th was on the 3rd fret of the high E string. Now it's going to go to the 2nd fret of the high E string. And that's a C diminished chord, okay? All right. We're pretty much going to work with major and minor chords, all right? So our C major, and that's only one way of playing it. There's 2 other ways that we can play it. They're called inversions. And the first inversion is going to be where the C note is going to move down to the high E string. So that's barring the 8th fret with our index finger and playing the 1st and 2nd string. And then we're going to use our middle finger to play the 9th fret of the 3rd string. That's our C chord. And just like the first C chord, we can move that up and down the neck and get anything. All right, so that's a C. Up here is an E. And then down here to G. Because our root, with that chord shape, our root note is going to be on the 1st string, okay? If we are going to make this a C minor, all we have to do is bar the 8th fret, all 3 strings, okay? So that's your C minor. All right, so to play the very last one, it's essentially going to be played right here, and we're going to make the same shape that we make with our open D chord. So our open D chord is here, and our D root note is this 3rd fret, and it's the 2nd string. So we're going to go up here to the 13th fret because that's where our C is on that same string, and we're going to have the same exact fingering, and that's C under the ring finger, E is under the middle, and the G is here at the 12th fret under the index, okay? All right, so C major. Now if we're going to make that minor, we have to flatten the 3rd, and the 3rd is here on the high E string. It's the actual E note. So we're going to change our fingering a little bit. We're going to leave the ring finger here on the 13th fret of the 2nd string. We are going to place our middle finger here on the 12th fret of the 3rd string, and then we'll put our index here on the 1st string at the 11th. And it's C, E flat, and G. All right, so that is how to play the C major triad, C minor triads, and of course in their inversions. Okay, let's move on to the chord progression that I was playing in the beginning. I was playing in E minor, and even if you don't know the fretboard entirely, but you at least know your D open chord, just remember that this third fret of the second string is your D. So your third fret is the D, your fifth fret is going to be your E, okay? So we place our ring here on the E, and we place our middle finger here on the B, and then we place our index on the first string of the first fret, which is our G. So that's our G minor. We go from G minor, and then we are going to play a C, and we learned how to play the C. That's going from the C to the G. And the G is just like the C that was up here. We're going to bar the third fret with the index finger on the first and second string, and then we're going to use our middle finger to play the fourth fret of the third string. That's our G note, and then we're just going to go to our open D. Improvise easy. We're going to play the 1, 2, and the 3 string. We're not going to play a full open D. We don't quite want it to sound that full and that low compared to the other chords we're playing. So we're going to go from E minor C to G to D. We have a bunch of different sounds, and if we arpeggiate those, we could go E minor to C to G to D. And really, you could put a backing track on and just run through those chords and arpeggiate them until you get used to making the changes, and that's going to sound musical. That's a lot of sounds. But we do want to start out small so we get used to knowing where the roots are, okay? So let's do something that only plays the root of each chord, all right? E minor chord plays, we're going to play an E note. And when a C chord plays, we're going to play a C note. And then when the G chord plays, we play the G note. And when the D chord plays, we play the D note. So basically, we are going from here's our E on the 5th fret, 2nd string. And our C is directly above it, 5th fret, 3rd string. And then our G is here on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. And the D is directly above it. It's going to be the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. So let's put on our chord progression and let's try that. That already sounds intentional. It's simple, but it does sound intentional because you are rooting out the harmony. And yes, pun intended. Now let's arpeggiate those chords over the backing track, and we're just going to play them in order, root, 3rd, 5th, right? So the 1, the 3, and the 5. Let's give that a shot. All right, if you caught it, that second time I played the G chord, I made a mistake. I went up to the 3rd and played 3, 5, 1. So I apologize. So the scale is E minor pentatonic, which is Okay, so that's the E minor pentatonic scale. We can play these chords and use any of the notes in that scale and add it to our chord tones. So for instance, if we want to connect our chord tones, we could start with, say, the E minor. To the C. To the G. To the D. You could just practice adding scale tones in there because the sounds connect and the triads define. Okay? So here's what I want you to practice. I want you to put on a backing track loop of some sort, whatever it is you're comfortable with. And it could be 2 chords, it could be 4 chords, whatever you like, whatever you're comfortable with. If this is challenging, it would be perfectly acceptable to start out with a 2-chord backing track and just get used to switching between the 2 chords and get used to arpeggiating and doing an arpeggio of 1 chord and then go to the next chord and arpeggiating that next chord, okay? So you could just play the whole triad, just strum the chord. And as you get comfortable with all of that, whatever chord progression you're working on, learn the scale if you don't already know it, and then maybe play a passing note that is part of that scale, either leading into or coming out of your chord. So if it's coming out of your chord, you would want it to be leading towards your next chord, okay? And always remember, if you see the chord, you're gonna see the notes, okay? And if this helped unlock the fretboard for you, please hit the like and subscribe and ring the notification bell. So that's all I have for you today. And this is just the beginning of a series of triad videos. I have several songs that I'd like to go over with you in the next few videos. So please check those out. All right, thanks for tuning in. I hope you've gotten something out of this lesson today that helps you move forward in your guitar playing. And please drop any kind of comments you have below. And for now, I will see you in the next video.